Now, what about this? It's one of the world's biggest unsolved mysteries. What's happened to the Ark of the Covenant?
A barefoot army overthrew the largest military force in Africa. At the heart of their homeland, in a heavily fortified city called Aksum, they guard a secret. Inside a small chapel, a single monk watches over an object so powerful it blinds him within months and ends his life within years. This isn't a fantasy novel. It's the reality that researcher Graham Hancock stumbled upon in his quest for the Ark of the Covenant.
3 of them over a succession of years, because their mortality is once they're appointed, they die very soon. And they all had these cataracts over their eyes, and they all blamed the object in that chapel, whether or not it's the Ark.
He didn't just find a legend. He found a weapon of immense power, a trail of historical evidence, and the unbelievable story of how it got there. The keepers of the blinding light. Many people are crazy about the story of the Ark, but the thing nobody tells you is that it might not be a holy relic at all. It might be something far more dangerous. Hancock's journey into this mystery didn't start in a dusty library, but with that shocking admission from a man in a position to know. The idea that a nation would actively avoid recovering its most sacred artifact is, to put it mildly, bizarre. What could possibly make the Ark so dangerous? Hancock was determined to find out, and his quest led him to the ancient city of Aksum in the highlands of Ethiopia. You see, Aksum isn't just any city, it's the heartland of the Tigrayan people, the very same barefoot army that against all odds removed the brutal dictatorship of Mengistu Haile Mariam back in 1991. They are fierce and they are protective of what lies at the center of their city. There in the sacred grounds of the Church of St. Mary of Zion, the oldest Christian place of worship in Africa, stands a small, unassuming sanctuary chapel. The entire area is an armed camp. There are guards with guns everywhere, and they are not for show. They protect the chapel with an intensity that speaks to the importance of its contents. Inside this chapel, an object they claim is the one and only Ark of the Covenant is kept. It is guarded by a single monk, a man who takes a vow to never leave the chapel grounds for the rest of his life. Hancock managed to approach the gates of the chapel and speak to this guardian. In fact, over a period of about 10 years, he spoke to several of them. And the most shocking fact is there was a high turnover for a terrifying reason. Once a monk is appointed to the guardianship of the Ark, they don't live for more than 2 or 3 years. Their lives come to a swift and strange end, but not all things are what they seem. Before their time is up, something bizarre happens to every single one of them. They go blind. Rapidly developing, thick cataracts cloud their eyes until they can no longer see. When Hancock asked the first guardian he met what was causing his blindness, the man's answer, delivered through a translator, was direct and horrifying. He looked at Hancock through his clouded, dying eyes and said the Ark was doing it to him. When asked why, he uttered 5 words that sent a shiver down Hancock's spine. "The Ark is a thing of fire." That's when the story got its hook into Hancock. This wasn't a myth. This was a man describing a physical experience. The most shocking fact is that modern science actually has an explanation for this. One of the known causes of rapidly forming cataracts is exposure to high levels of radiation. And you can see this everywhere in places with high radiation exposure. For instance, people living at high altitudes, like in the Peruvian highlands, are closer to the sun with less atmospheric protection and have a higher incidence of cataracts. The link is undeniable. The guardians were describing symptoms consistent with exposure to a powerful radioactive object. This wasn't just a legend anymore, it was a tangible physical threat. The trail of evidence was becoming clearer. The ambassador's warning, the armed fortress in Aksum, and now the testimony of the doomed guardians all pointed to the same unbelievable conclusion. The Ark of the Covenant is real, it's in Ethiopia, and it's radiating an energy so powerful it has physical, detrimental effects on those who get too close. The Ark wasn't just a chest holding stone tablets, it was a device, an ancient piece of technology that was still active and still incredibly dangerous. But the real mystery wasn't just what the Ark does, but how it got there. A trail across Africa. What many overlooked is how a sacred Jewish object ended up in a Christian church in the heart of Africa. The mainstream historical view is simple. The Ark was likely taken when the Babylonians ransacked Jerusalem in 587 BC. They destroyed the first temple, the Temple of Solomon, which had been built specifically as a house of rest for the Ark of the Covenant. The problem with this theory, Hancock discovered, is all in the details. The thing nobody tells you is that the Babylonians were notorious bureaucrats. They kept meticulous records of everything they took from Jerusalem, a detailed inventory of the temple's treasures. The Ark of the Covenant is nowhere on that list. It's not mentioned at all. This means the Ark was likely already gone from the temple before the Babylonians ever arrived. This sent Hancock digging into a much more obscure period of biblical history, the reign of a king named Manasseh who ruled around 650 BC. Manasseh is reviled in the Bible for abandoning the traditional faith. What many overlooked is that he did something truly sacrilegious. He placed a pagan idol, an effigy of the Canaanite goddess Asherah, inside the Holy of Holies. This was the most sacred chamber of the temple, the very room that housed the Ark. Hancock consulted with biblical scholars at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem who confirmed his suspicion. The loyal priests, the Levites who were charged with carrying the Ark, could never have allowed it to remain in a room that had been ritually polluted by a pagan idol. They would have been duty-bound to take it out and hide it to save it from this desecration. This happened around 650 BC, long before the Babylonians. And here's where it gets crazy. At almost the exact same time, around 650 BC, a Jewish temple mysteriously appears on Elephantine Island, deep in southern Egypt. For another temple to be built outside of Israel during the First Temple period is completely unheard of and cannot be explained by mainstream history. Unless, of course, that temple was built for one specific purpose, to house the newly rescued Ark of the Covenant. This was the first stop on a secret journey. The Ark remained there for about 250 years, but around 400 BC, that temple was dismantled. You see, there was a conflict between the Jewish population on the island and the native Egyptians. The local patron deity was a ram-headed god, and the Jewish community, following their traditions, was sacrificing rams. This led to them being driven out. Hancock believes these Levitical priests took the Ark and fled south, following the Nile River system on an epic journey. They traveled all the way to Lake Tana in Ethiopia, the source of the Blue Nile. Cutting a long story short, Hancock found an island on Lake Tana called Tana Kirkos, which had an ancient pre-Christian tradition of housing the Ark. The monks there, now Christian, told him they were originally of the Jewish faith and that the Ark was first brought to their island. They showed him ancient structures they claimed were part of the housing for the Ark. They said it stayed there for centuries until Ethiopia converted to Christianity around 200 years after Christ. The first Christian king, King Ezana, sent his army to the island, took the Ark, and brought it to his new capital, Aksum. And according to this incredible oral tradition, it has been in Aksum ever since. The evidence is circumstantial, but what if there's a modern-day cover-up? Truth in fiction. The most shocking fact isn't just the trail of evidence Hancock uncovered, but that the story is still alive today. In the rest of the world, the Ark is a lost object, a relic forgotten in the past. But in Ethiopia, it is the living, breathing center of their entire religious culture. What many overlooked is this incredible fact. Every single one of the thousands of churches in Ethiopia contains a replica of the Ark, known as a tabad, in its Holy of Holies. That replica is what gives the church its sanctity. If the tabot is removed, the church is considered deconsecrated, just an empty building. Their entire faith gains its power by reference to the original, which they firmly believe rests in that guarded chapel in Aksum. This is a living, continuous tradition stretching back nearly 2,000 years. It's a Christian culture venerating a pre-Christian Jewish relic. To put it mildly, this is unique in the world. Ethiopia is the only place that has a stronger case for possessing the Ark than anywhere else, based on this unwavering cultural belief system. This leads to a fascinating idea about how truth gets out into the world. Hancock touched on the idea that maybe filmmakers like Steven Spielberg have been leaked information. Think about it. The uncomfortable truths that institutions don't want the public to know are often leaked subliminally through fiction, through movies and books. It prepares the population for a larger revelation, or it hides the truth in plain sight where it can be dismissed as entertainment. You can see this everywhere, especially when it comes to ancient mysteries. This gradual leaking of information is a pattern. Take the Giza Plateau in Egypt, for example. For decades, the former head of Egyptian antiquities, Zahi Hawass, publicly and aggressively denied that there were any tunnels or hidden chambers under the pyramids or the Sphinx. He dismissed such ideas as fantasy. But here's where it gets crazy. Not long ago, in a television documentary, Hawass himself is seen exploring newly revealed tunnels under the plateau, acknowledging their existence as if it were common knowledge. The thing nobody tells you is that for years before this admission, organizations like Edgar Case's Association for Research and Enlightenment had been allowed to conduct secretive sonar surveys on the plateau. These surveys, carried out in the early 1990s by researchers John Anthony West and Robert Schoch, identified extensive tunnel systems and most notably a large rectangular chamber. They used seismic equipment hitting the ground and measuring how the sound waves bounced back to map out voids under the surface. Their data showed a massive man-made chamber about 15 feet down, directly under the left forepaw of the Sphinx. The chamber is huge, measuring about 35 feet long by 15 feet wide, roughly the size of a large room. There is a lot of stuff you can cram in there. For years, this was denied. Now it's being slowly acknowledged. It's the same pattern, vehement denial followed by a slow, controlled release of the truth. These secrets are hidden in plain sight, but what does it all mean for us? A dangerous revelation. When you piece it all together, the puzzle of the Ark of the Covenant becomes less about a lost treasure and more about a hidden truth. Graham Hancock's decade of detective work presents a compelling, if circumstantial, case. The trail from King Manasseh's desecrated temple to the mysterious outpost on Elephantine Island, down the Nile to Lake Tana, and finally to the fortress-like city of Aksum is a story that fits the available evidence better than any mainstream theory. It explains why the Ark isn't on the Babylonian loot list and why an entire nation has built its faith around an object it keeps under armed guard. Hancock is the first to admit he cannot absolutely prove the Ark is in that chapel. He hasn't seen it. Nobody has, except for the one doomed guardian who is locked away with it. But as he says, Ethiopia has a stronger claim than anywhere else on Earth. And frankly, he's glad for it. He is relieved that the Ark is hidden away in the highlands of Africa and not sitting on the center of the world stage. Now we have to talk directly to the people watching this, to you wondering if all this is true. Are we missing a key detail? The thing is, the ambassador's warning may have been the most truthful part of the entire story. Imagine if that object, that thing of fire, were brought to Jerusalem today. The geopolitical and religious fallout would be unimaginable. It could trigger conflicts on a scale we have never seen. Perhaps its power isn't just physical or radioactive. Perhaps its greatest power is symbolic, and its re-emergence would be a catalyst for chaos. So this entire journey, this incredible story, ends not with a grand discovery, but with a sobering thought. Hancock's work forces us to debunk the myth that the Ark is just a passive, holy box. All the evidence points to it being an active, powerful, and dangerous device from a lost chapter of human history. The final verdict is that the mystery remains, but the nature of the mystery has changed. The question is no longer where is the Ark, but what is the Ark? And perhaps it's a question that, for the sake of our own stability, is better left unanswered. So what do you believe? Is the Ark a divine relic, a piece of advanced ancient technology, or just a legend? And more importantly, should we ever try to find it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into history's greatest secrets.